Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
How are you today?
I'm fine, thank you. And you?
I feel good today. Okay, I will start first. On this occasion, I will tell you about ransomware. Explain ransomware definition. Ransomware is a form of malware that encrypts a victim files. The attacker demands a ransom from the victim to restore access to the data upon payment. Users are shown instructions for how to pay a fee to get the decryption key. The cost can range from a few $100 to thousands, payable to cyber criminal in Bitcoin. History of ransomware. The first case were reported in Russia in 2005. However, since then, the scams have spread throughout the world, with the new types still successfully targeted victims. In September 2013, CryptoLocker surfaced and targeted a version of Windows. It has successfully infected hundreds of thousands of personal computer and business systems. Victims acknowledging obtained up emails impersonating customer support service from FedEx, UPS, DHS, and other companies. Once activated, the malware unscreen timer on demand an average payment of $300 within 72 hours. Some versions affected local files and removable media. The United States Computer Emergency Response, the team warned the malware had the ability to jump from machine to machine and advised infected computer users to immediately remove infected machine from their network. How ransomware works? There are a number of vectors ransomware can take to access a computer. One of the most common delivery system is phishing spam attachment that come to the victim in an email, masquerading as a file that sold trust. Once they are downloaded and opened, they can take over the victim computer, especially if they have built-in social engineering tools that trick users in allowing administrative access. Some other, more aggressive forms of ransomware, like NotPetya, exploit security holes to infect computers without needing to trick users. There are several things the malware make do once it's taken over the victim computer, but by far the most common action is to encrypt some or all of user files. If you want the technical details, the InfoSec Institute has a great in-depth look at how several flavors of ransomware encrypt files. But the most important thing to know is that the end of the process, the files cannot be decrypted without a mathematical calculation only by the attacker. The user is presented with a message explaining that their files are now inaccessible and will only be decrypted if the victim sends a untrackable Bitcoin payment to the attacker. In some forms of malware, the attacker might claim to be a law enforcement agency shutting down the victim computer due to the presence of pornography or pirated software on it, and demanding the payment of a fine, perhaps to make victim less likely to report the attack to authorities. But most attacks don't bother with this pretense. There is also a variation called leakware or doxware, in which the attacker threatens to public sensitive data on the victim hard drive unless a ransom is paid. But because finding and extracting such information is a very tricky proposition for attackers, encryption ransomware is by far the most common type. What is a target for ransomware? There are several different ways attackers use the organization they target with ransomware. Sometimes it's a matter of opportunity. For instance, attackers may target universities because they tend to have smaller security teams and a disparate user base that does a lot of file sharing, making it easier to penetrate their defense. On the other hand, some organizations are tempting target because they seem more likely to pay a ransom quickly. For instance, government agencies or medical facilities often need immediate access to their files. Law firms and other organizations with sensitive data may be willing to pay to keep news of compromised quiet, and this organization may be uniquely sensitive to lackware attacks. But don't feel like you are safe if you don't fit this category. As we know, some ransomware spread automatically and indiscriminately across the internet. How to prevent some ransomware? There are a number of defensive steps you can take to prevent ransomware infection. The steps are, of course, good security practices in general, so following them improve your defense from all sorts of attacks. First, keep your operating system patches and up to date to ensure you have fewer vulnerability to exploit. 2. Don't install software or give it administrative privilege unless you know exactly what it is and what it does. Install antivirus software which detects malicious programs like ransomware as they arrive, and whitelisting software which prevent unauthorized application from executing in the first place. And of course, back up your files frequently and automatically. That won't stop a malware attack, but it can make the damage caused by on much less significant. Ransomware removal. If your computer has been infected with ransomware, you will need to regain control of your machine. But here is the important thing to keep in mind. While walking through these steps can remove the malware from your computer and restore it to your control. It won't decrypt your files. Their transformation into unreadability has already happened. And if the malware is at all sophisticated, it will be mathematically impossible for anyone to decrypt them without access to the key that the attacker holds. In fact, by removing the malware, you have precluded the possibility of restoring your files by paying the attackers the ransom they have accepted for. Ransomware facts and figure. Ransomware is big business. There is a lot of money in ransomware, and the market expanded rapidly from the beginning of the decade. In 2017, ransomware resulted in $5 billion in loss. But in terms of ransom, paid and spending and lost time in recovering from attack, it's up 50 times from 2015. In the first quarter of 2018, just one kind of ransomware software Samsung collected $1 million in ransom money. And the some markets are particularly prone to ransomware and to paying the ransom. Many high-profile ransomware attacks have occurred in hospital or other medical organizations, which making tempting target. Attackers know that with lives literally in the balance, these enterprises are more likely to simply pay a relatively low ransom to make a problem go away. It's estimated that 45% of ransomware attacks target healthcare, forget, and conversely that 85% of malware infection at healthcare are ransomware. Another tempting industry, the financial service sector, which is really certain famously remarked where the money is. It's estimated that 90% of financial institutions were targeted by a ransomware attack in 2017. Your anti-malware software won't necessarily protect you. Ransomware is constantly being written and tweaked by its developer, and so its signatures are often not caught by a typical antivirus program. In fact, as many as 75% of companies that fall victim to ransomware were running up-to-date endpoint protection on the infected machine. Ransomware is not as prevalent as it used to be. If you want a bit of good news is this: the number of ransomware attacks after exploding in the mid-10 has gone into a decline. Though the initial numbers were high enough that it's still. But in the first quarter of 2017, ransomware attacks made up 60% of malware payloads. Now it's down to 5%. Ransomware example, while ransomware has technically been around since the 90s, and it's only taking off in the past 5 years or so. largely because of the availability of untrackable payment methods like Bitcoin. Some of the world's offenders have been CryptoLocker at 2013 attack launched the moderate ransomware edge and infected up to 5,000 100 machine and its high Tesla Crypt targeted gaming files and saw constant improvement during its region of terror. Simple Locker was the first widespread ransomware attack that focused on mobile device. WannaCry spread autonomously from computer to computer using internal blue exploit developed by NSI and then stolen by hackers. NotPetya also used internal blue and might have been part of Russian directed cyber attack against Ukraine. I think enough. This is the end my presentation. Will be continued by Rahayu or Sinta maybe.
Hello everyone.
Hello.
Hello.
I will tell you about code engineer. What is code engineer? Uh, how does CI frame works? What is CI? CI is PHP MVC framework as for developing web application rapidly. CI provides out-of-the-box libraries for connection to the database and performing various operations like sending email, uploading files, managing session. CI feature. Let's see some of the features that make CI great. The following list is not exhaustive but give you an idea of what to expect when working with CI. Small footprint. The entire source code of CI framework is close to 2 MB. This makes it easy to master CI and how it works. It also simplifies deploying and updating IT. Releasing fast. Use 10 to favor application that load very fast. If you have worked with some of the modern framework, then you will realize that they takes less than 1 second to load just after installation. CI you can load on average around less than 50 ms. The extra time span optimized like is the case in another framework is free up when you are working with CI framework. Loosely coupled. The built-in feature designed to work independently without relying too much on other components. It makes it easy to maintain and make upgrades. MVC architecture. The PHP CI framework uses the model MVU controller architectural design. It is industry standard practice when working with web application. MVC separates the data, business logic, and presentation. Excellent documentation. The framework is well documented, and there are good book tutorial and answer forum question on CI. This means whether a challenge that you have changed or someone has already encountered the problem, solve it, and the solution is out there for you. Application specific built-in component. CI has component for send email, data management, session management, and many more. You have this cover as we continue with the tutorials. Extendable. CI comes with some libraries and helper out of the box. If what you want it not there are you would like to implement an exciting feature your way, then you can do easily by creating your libraries, helpers, package. You can also create a REST AP in CI. So learning curve. CI, it easy to master for everyone who is already familiar with PHP within every short time. The student learn CI and start developing professional application using CI. How CI works? CI is an MVC framework, MVC standard for model view controller. When use request search. The controller respond first. The controller understand the user request request the necessary data if necessary. For example, if you want to retrieve a customer with the ID 3, the controller will receive your request, then request the CI models to retrieve the record with the ID of 3. The CI models will return the record to the controller. The controller then forward the result to the view, which format is into a human readable format. Then results are returned to the user in the browser. Summary: CI is a PHP framework for developing application rapidly. When entry source code of CI is close to through MB, this makes it easy to master CI and how it works. The built-in features of CI are designed to work independently without relying too much on the other component. The framework uses the model view controller architectural design. The framework is well documented and there are guidebook, tutorials, and answer forum questions on CI. CI comes with some libraries and helper use out of the box. CI is easy to master for everyone who is already familiar with PHP. In CI, user requests a research, the controller responds first. The controller understands the user request, then requests and necessary data if it's important. CI 4 was released on February 24, 2020, the birthday of Zim Party, who was the project lead of CI4, ended on January 15, 2020. That's enough. Thank you for attention. Next, Rahayu.
Okay, hello all.
Hello.
Hello.
On this occasion, I want to tell you about Oracle database architecture. An Oracle database is a collection of data treated as a unit. The purpose of a database is to store and retrieve related information. A database server is the key solving the problems of information management. In general, a server reliably manages a large amount of data in a multi-user environment so that many users can concurrently access the same data. All this is accomplished while delivering high performance. A database server also prevents unauthorized access and provides a efficient solution for failure recovery. Oracle Database is the first database designed for enterprise-grade computing, the most flexible and cost-effective way to manage information application. Enterprise-grade computing creates large pools of industry standard. Modular storage and server with this architecture, each new system can be rapidly provisioned from the pool of components. There is no need for peak workloads because capacity can be easily added or reallocate from the research pools as needed. The database has logical structure and physical structures. Because the physical logical structures and are structures, the physical storage of data can be managed without affecting the access to logical storage structure. Overview of Oracle Grid Structure. Grid computing is a new IT architecture that produces more resilient and new and lower cost enterprise information system. With grid computing, groups of independent modular hardware and software components can be connected and rejoined on demand to meet the changing needs of business. The grid styles of computing aims to solve some common problems with enterprise IT. The problem of application silos that lead to underutilized dedicated hardware research. The problem of monolithic, unwieldy systems that are expensive to maintain and difficult to change. And the problem of fragmented and disseminated information that cannot be fully exploited by the enterprise as a whole. Benefit of grid computing. Compared to other models of computing, IT system design and employed in the grid style deliver high quality of service, lower cost, and greater flexibility. Higher quality of service results from having no single point of failure, a robust security infrastructure, and controlled policy-driven management. Lower costs derive from increasing the utilization of research and dramatically reducing management and maintenance costs, rather than dedicating a stack of software and hardware to a specific task. All research, pull and unlock on demand, thus eliminating use underutilized capacity and redundant capability. Grid computing also enables the use of a smaller individual hardware components that reducing the cost of each individual component and providing more flexibility to devote research in accordance with changing needs. Grid computing defined. The grid style of computing treats collection of similar IT research holistically as a single pool, while exploiting the distinct nature of the individual research within the pool. To address simulation, the problem of monolithic system and fragmented research. Grid computing achieves a balance between the benefit of holistic research management and flexible independent research control. IT research managed in a grid include infrastructure, the hardware and software that create a data storage and program execution environment. Application, the program logic and flow that defines specific business process. Information, the meanings inherent in all different types of data used to conduct business. Core two tenets of grid computing. Two core tenets uniquely distinguish grid computing from other styles are computing such as mainframe, client-server, or multi-tier, virtualization, and provisioning. With virtualization, individual research, truth, and abstraction. Virtualization means breaking hard-code connection between providers and consumer of research and preparing a research to servers particular need without the consumer caring how that is accomplished. With provisioning, when consumer requests research through a virtualization layer, behind the skin a specific research is independent to fulfill the request and then is allotted to the consumer. Provisioning as a part of grid computing means that the system determines how to meet the specific need of the consumer while optimizing operation of the system as a whole. The specific ways in which information, application, or infrastructure research are visualized and provided are specific to the type of research, but the concept applies universally. Similarly, the specific benefits derived from grid computing are particular to each type of research, but all share the characteristic of better quality, lower cost, and increased flexibility. Is infrastructure grid. Infrastructure grid research include hardware research such as store, processor memory, and network as well as software designed to manage this hardware, such as database storage management, system management, application server, and operation system. Virtualization and provisioning of infrastructure research mean pulling research together and allocating to the appropriate consumer based on policy. For example, one policy might to be dedicated enough processing power to a web server that it can always provide sub-second response time. That rule could be fulfilled in different ways by the provisioning software in order to balance the requests of all consumers. Treating infrastructure research as a single pool and allocating those research on demands save money by eliminating at less capacity and redundant capabilities. Managing hardware and software resource holistically reduces the cost of labor and opportunity for human error. Spreading computing capacity among many different computers and spreading storage capacity across multiple disks and this group remove single point of failure so that any individual component fails, the system as whole remain available. Furthermore, grid computing offers the option to use similar individual hardware components such as blade server and low-cache storage, which enable incremental scaling and reduce the cost of each individual component, thereby giving components more flexibility and lower cost. Infrastructure is the definition of grid composition that is most familiar and easy to understand, but the same concept applies to application and information. Applications grid. Application resources in a grid are the encoding of business logic and process flow within application software. This may be package application or customer application, written in any programming language reflecting any level of complexity. For example, the software detects order from a customer and sends a acknowledgement, the process that prints payroll checks and the logic that routes particular customer call be particular again are all application research. Historically, application logic has been intertwined with user interface code, data management code, and process or page flow and has locked well-defined interface, which has resulted in monolithic applications that are difficult to change and difficult to integrate. Service-oriented architecture has emerged as a superior mod- model for building application, and service-oriented architecture concept align exactly with the core tenet of grid computing. Virtualization and processing of application research involves publishing application components as service for use by multiple customers, which may be people or processor, then architecting those services into more powerful business flow. In the same way, the grid's computation enable greater rest and more flexibility of IT infrastructure research. Grid computing also treats bit of application logic as a research, and enable greater research of application functionality and more flexibility in changing and building new composite applications. Furthermore, applications that are orchestrated from public service are able to view activity and business as a single whole, so that processes are standardized across geography and business units and processes are automated end-to-end. This generates more reliable business process and lower cost through increased automation and reduced variability. Okay, that's enough for me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's just end the meeting this time. See you next time.
See you.